So first of all, yes, you're absolutely right. European demand has indeed bounced back post-COVID. But Europe also faces the problem that our own gas production continues to decline, our pipeline imports from Russia are lower, and the global LNG market has tightened, so our availability of LNG supplies from other sources outside of Europe has also declined.
How does Russia normally contractually supply gas?
So normally, the bulk of what we receive in Europe from Gazprom arrives under long-term contracts. These can be between 5 and 25 years in length, with a bit of flexibility in terms of how much we actually receive. So down to about 80% of the contractual volume and up to about 110%. But in addition to those long-term contracts, Gazprom also sells gas to Europe on a more discretionary basis on European trading hubs. And what we've seen this year so far is that they have sold very little on those trading hubs. They've been sticking to their long-term contracts. European companies are saying that they're getting what they pay for under those contracts, but we're missing those additional volumes, and that has tightened the European market significantly.
So why is that happening? Why is Russia not taking advantage of demand and supplying with those short-term contracts?
There's been a lot of speculation about this, a lot of speculation about whether Gazprom is actually deliberately holding back these volumes in order to encourage the German regulator and the European Commission to grant approval for Nord Stream 2. But from our analysis, we would say that there's a bit more to it than that actually the uncomfortable truth for Gazprom is that it might not have enough gas to go around. Gas demand in Russia has rebounded significantly this year, and they had a very cold winter at the start of the first quarter of this year, just as we did in Europe and indeed across the Northern Hemisphere. So they drained down their seasonal gas storage, and they've been trying very hard to fill that back up again this summer. And of course, they've continued meeting their long-term contract commitments to Europe. So where they've economized effectively is on these discretionary sales to European gas hubs and actually in placing gas in European storage facilities as well, where we're seeing less Russian gas there as we approach the winter also.
But Jack, I mean, Nord Stream 2 is an interesting point because they're trying to bypass Ukraine, which is, as we know, there are so many tensions between Russia and Ukraine. This is sort of punishment in a way for Ukraine. It does seem as if that could be a political motivation as well for Russia.
I think there's a political motivation. We can't forget that there is an ongoing frozen conflict in eastern Ukraine between separatists backed by the Russians fighting the Ukrainian army. The issue of Crimea is still live, let's say. But in addition to this, aside from the geopolitics, for Gazprom, the Russian gas exporting company, there is also an issue of their dependence on Ukraine as a means of delivering gas to Europe. And in fact, we should see Nord Stream 2 in a broader context of their 25-year strategy to build new pipelines that bypass Ukraine and plug themselves directly into the lucrative European market.
You know, Jack, it's so fascinating because, of course, we've got the Glasgow COP26 summit coming up, so much discussion around getting off these traditional forms of energy supplies, but it just shows that really we're not poised globally to make those changes, it would seem, at the moment with these kind of shortages.
No, not at all. And in fact, what this energy crisis, certainly in Europe, has really exposed is the inelasticity of our demand for natural gas. We use it in industries, and the only way that that demand drops is when factories stop operating. We use it for heating. Taking the UK as an example, 4/5 of our homes are heated with natural gas. And so we simply, when the consumer prices go up, we simply have to pay them because we have no alternatives. And then finally, gas for power generation. In certain countries like Germany, there are strategies in place to phase out coal and phase out nuclear. And of course, gas has to go hand in hand with renewables to balance their power sector. But also this summer in Europe, we saw the least windy summer since 1961. So, of course, our wind power production was down compared to previous years. And again, gas is what we go to fill those gaps. So in the very short term, we don't really have much in the way of alternatives, which is why we've seen demand continue to be robust despite these extraordinary prices.
Yeah, and you're also seeing much greater competition and even, you know, in our region, in the Asia-Pacific region, countries prepared to pay a higher premium and then the gas is diverted there. So this is going to be an interesting long-term conundrum at this point.
Oh, absolutely so. And the problem that we face in Europe is that we are the market of last resort for cargoes of liquefied natural gas, such as those exported in great volume by Australia. The Asian buyers will always pay a premium because, generally speaking, they lack alternatives. In Europe, we import quite a lot by pipeline from Russia, from Norway, and from North Africa. We have a lot of seasonal storage and still a chunk of our own production. In Asia, they tend not to have that, which means that they will pay a premium in order to gain access to these LNG cargoes. So in times of a tight market, that premium will rise and they will do their best to get hold of those cargoes, and then Europe has to go short to balance the global market effectively.
Let's hope the winter's not as cold this time round. Great to talk, Jack. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Bye-bye now.